Hello, my name is Marcus, and today we're going to be creating this. Alright, so now we're back here in After Effects. Let's start by adding a text layer. Let's click up there. Let's call it Sand Donut. Because, come on, let's just face it, that's just cool. Who doesn't want a good old-fashioned sand donut? Let's align it, something like this. And let's start by pre-composing it immediately. So Control-Shift-C to pre-compose. We're going to call this text with a big T. Bam. Alright. We can already animate this if we want to, or we can wait a smidge. But we can basically just go into animate. Let's say scale. Let's take it down to like 70. And we can even go to range selector. Let's say animate this bad boy. So let's say it starts at 100. There we go. And all the way over to 7, it is animated. Now in advanced, we can change how it actually appears. So I'm gonna turn the random order on. Random order on. And I'm also gonna set it to ramp down. That way it's gonna do these nice animating in scale effects on each letter. So it's kind of nice. And we can also change the tracking. So I'm gonna animate and I'm gonna click on the tracking right here. And I'm gonna animate the tracking on that last keyframe, make a little bit of a keyframe there, and I'm just gonna smush it all together. So something like this. So it just expands over time. We can move these keyframes if you want. I'm even gonna press U once to only view the keyframes that I have or the properties that I have keyframed. I'm just gonna take these bad boys and I'm gonna right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease in. Now into the graph editor, I'm just gonna expand this bad boy quite a smidge. I want it to ease in quite a lot, as in I want the value to slowly reach its maximum over time. So we'll do something like this. Something elegant. There we go. All right, so next part is we're gonna create the sand. So let's start by making a new solid. Whoopsie daisy. Let's start by making a new solid here. Let's call this bad boy sand noise. And you know what? I'm gonna make it black. Control-Shift-Y to modify an existing solid. I'm gonna take it all the way down to black. There we go. Just like the T. I'm gonna click on this, Control-Shift-C, pre-composed immediately. And I'm gonna just take this away. There we go. Sand noise. Alright, so let's start applying some effects to this bad boy. So over here in effects, let's apply a fractal noise. There we go, double click. So let's start by making it swirly, because let's face it, we like swirly noise, right? Okay. Then we can just expand the size here. Let's do like this, maybe decrease complexity down to 4, because we want to control the complexity by ourselves. Maybe down to 3, yeah, something like this. All right, so let's start playing around with the scale itself. So we can just expand it a bit by clicking off uniform scaling. We can control each axis in the scale. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to expand it a smidge. And I want it actually to be inverse. I wanted the crevices to be the light parts. So I'm going to click on invert. See, now we got some cheese on our sandwich. So see, all right. So let's start also by adding some out-click on evolution here. And I'm going to write time times 50. Just so that it, animates a little bit over time. All right, and let's also animate the offset turbulence, because that's going to be our animation later on. So I'm going to click on offset turbulence. I'm going to go all the way over to, 7. Let's just give it a good movement here so we can see it just. It's probably not enough, but we got to start somewhere. I'm going to press U to only show the keyframes here. Going to Control-Shift-K to bring up the keyframe velocity on that keyframe. I'm gonna set, 0 and let's say 80. So it's really a drastic. Go into graph editor, just modify it a bit. Actually, it's fine. We can ease in to give it a little bit of So now we have the basic noise here. We can play around with the brightness, like maybe decrease the contrast. We gotta play around with this. Alright, so now let's start applying some color. That will be easier for us to determine how this looks. So let's go up into Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, I'm gonna call this color. There we go. I'm gonna start by giving it an exposure effect because we want to be able to control the contrast easier instead of having to go in and out of the noise every time. And we're also going to apply a CC toner. And this, I love this effect because you can really modify colors across a lot of luminance spectrums. So let's go into Pentone here. Let's start playing around with this bad boy here. Let's give it some really sandy look, some really satiating sandiness here. So I'm just going to, something along these lines. So we have like this nice soft color gradient of sand, right? So now we can start playing around with this bad boy. You can see the sand is animating and that's all well and good, but it still looks quite, just like an ordinary fractal noise. So we can play around with this a smidge, you can fill it up a bit, you can decrease the brightness. Let's just increase the size considerably, really make it, like really large scale sandiness going on here. And the cool thing is we can actually just increase the complexity of this, not necessarily just by increasing the complexity of the noise, although that could also be a method of doing it. But I would actually prefer to duplicate the noise and then just scale this bad boy down. So this new noise here, let's just play around with the settings here. Let's just smidge it around, something like Dios, something considerably smaller, something along these lines. And then we're going to go up into the blend mode of the second noise and set it to lighten. Where are you? Lighten. So the cool thing about lighten is it looks at the blend mode values and the base values, and then it chooses the brightest value, which is pretty darn cool. So you can see it actually blends with the other image quite nicely. And the cool thing is now we can also offset this layer a little bit more. That way we create like several layers of complexity. And come on, if that isn't sexy, I don't know what is. So I'm even going to duplicate it again. I'm even gonna go in here, rescale this one a little bit, smidge here, just do it a little bit smaller, just go a little bit more, and I'll set it a smidge more, something like this. So we really get like these several layers of complexity. So now we got something to look at here. And now let's start adding the serious stuff, right? So let's just minimize these bad boys. Now I'm gonna make a new layer. Where are you? Adjustment layer, and we're gonna call this a blur. That's right, you heard me right. And we're going to go into effects and call an effect called vector blur. Double click on that boy. So this is a very interesting type of blur. If I just increase it right now, you can see it's even quite heavy, so I gotta be careful. But you can see it actually takes the contrast and basically pinches it towards the highest luminance points, the highest contrast points. You can even rotate this. And you can see it just basically, let me just decrease the resolution, it's quite heavy. So if we rotate it around, you can see it either pinches it or expands wherever the luminance is brightest. And this is quite interesting. So let's play around with this. So I'm going to take the rich smoothness basically all the way down. Just going to increase the blur itself, and I'm going to find a place that I find somewhat satisfying, and I'm going to increase the map softness because I wanted to have some nice blending between the things, just play around with this. You can activate and deactivate to start seeing what it does, but it starts to really see, look at this, it actually starts to really get nice and wispy and blending with itself. And it creates some really nice liquid or sandy look. And you can even, you can animate the noises of these different layers. So double click E and double click E if you want to like, all right, this layer should have faster noise. Same with this one. Now it has a little bit more of a, let me just take it over to the last key frame so you can see it better. So it has this really nice blending effect where it just blends with itself, and that is just, come on, that is just sexy. All right, so let's move on to the next step here. So let's go back to our sand reveal, our original composition here. So we're gonna do quite a few things here. So first of all, on this text effect, we're gonna apply an image wipe. That's right, I love image wipe. We're going to set it to image based on the sand noise. So you can see here, it is animating away based on the contrast of the noise. So that's pretty awesome. So we're going to link quite a few things together to make this work. So first of all, let's duplicate the sand noise. Let's take this up here. I'm going to hide the original noise. And this sand noise, we're going to make this nice little square box that basically covers the text. So something like Dios, along these lines-ish. And we're going to make it visible. So let's go up here. Let's just really increase the feather of this bad boy, especially in the x-axis. Something like Dios. All right, so let's also apply a turbulence displacement. So, we get this nice little wispiness on this layer. Let's just decrease the resolution in here as well, so we can get a little bit more irregular shape of the text. So next we're gonna say unmult. Now the reason I'm choosing unmult is to eliminate all the black part or the darkest parts of the image, and that is to make sure that the text below it will be revealed, or at least more visible when the sand goes above it. Now we're gonna choose an image wipe, double click on that bad boy, and of course we're gonna set it to the original sand noise, but this way we can control the contrast of another noise, so that's quite nice. So let's this thing we can actually animate on. We can maybe even say like 20. Yeah, there we go. So we can start by maybe just keyframing this. Let's just start by taking this all the way down. Let's hide the text in a second here. Let's take it all the way down and keyframe this bad boy. I would say approximately 2 seconds. It's going to be as bright as we can make it. So something like this. Go all the way to the end. And let's say, again, just wipe it away. Something like this. There we go. See, we already got some nice wispiness going on here. So, wispy. Ooh, yeah. We can even play around with the size of the turbulence and all that stuff, like 150, increase the complexity. Now let's apply a good old-fashioned curves effect, because we want to boost the alpha of the image, because right now it's decently visible, but it doesn't really cover much. I'm gonna increase the alpha of the sand. I mean, look at that. Yes. This way we can get some really nice like emphasis on the sand and all this stuff. It really increase the contrast. We maybe decrease the amount it goes to the side. Make sure it doesn't hit the edges. So next step is the text. So we're gonna duplicate the sand noise once again. Take it up here. And we're gonna set this noise to set mate. It's an awesome effect here. Set mate. Double click. This is gonna take the alpha or whatever layer we give it. So I'm gonna say text. There we go. Actually, let's call this text underscore reveal, because that is the purpose of this text, is simply to make sure that it can be revealed. So let's just hide this. So this sand noise, this is what we're going to call text. And let's say effects and masks. So look at this sexiness. So since we've added a setmate effect to this text layer, we can actually just keyframe the original text to make it come on or off as we want, which is awesome. Look at this. Look at this sexiness here. Basically just keyframe this. So at the end here, it's gonna be a 0 or whatever the minimum is. We can actually just increase until it's fully there, something like this. And then the beginning, we're gonna take it all the way down. Something like Dios. There we go. Now look at this. It actually looks like the sand is slowly revealing the text. And I mean, if that isn't sexy, I just simply don't know what is. You could, of course, add all sorts of effects to the text itself, which is this layer. So even if you want, you can give it like a roughen edges if you wanted to, just have these nice rough edges come on over time. So, let's say a key from here. Let's say border all the way to 0. Keyframe that bad boy. go over here where it's quite distorted. We can just increase the roughness quite a lot, something like this, maybe decrease size. Near the end, if we wanted to, maybe you wanted to actually continue having the colors of the sand, and that's fine. So maybe just like the colors from the sand in your text, and you can leave it as it is. You can see still animating behind in the text. Otherwise, you can maybe go over here and add a tint effect. Double click on that bad boy. Whoops, I need to select the text and then click on the tint. There we go. So here we can just select a color that we really like. So some really nice orange-ish yellow thing, something like this. You can make it brighter if you want. I'm just going to animate the amount of tint. So at the beginning it's going to be 0, and by the end it's going to be fully visible. So next step is the particles. So select all this. So let's add a new layer here, up here, new solid. Let's call this sand particles, blah, blah, blah. There we go. Now we're going to go over here into effects and call particle world. There we go. So a lot of grid and stuff is coming on. So I'm just going to hide everything except the position so we can see what we're doing and where we're moving. And I'm going to go down here to producer. I'm just going to move this point all the way over here or something like this. And let's play around with all this stuff. So animation is going to be direction axis. We want to only go one way. Gravity is going to be extremely low, actually just a little bit plus. Actually, we want it to go a little bit up in the air, something like this. I'm going to play around with the extra to basically simulate the different velocity for different sand. I'm going to go down here in particle and say dark and faded sphere. So it's just really spherical spheres. And we're going to say max opacity full, and we're going to say the size is going to be very low. So like 0.15 and 0.15, something like this, very small particles. Let's just increase the amount dramatically, so like 10. And we can even increase the radius. Whoopsie daisy, that was a little bit too much, but something like this. So we get this nice big wavy thingamabob going on. We're going to have almost a uniform color to them. So something like very bright sandish, maybe a little bit darker, a little bit more orange. And we're going to give this bad boy a turbulent displacement, something like this. So we want them to start and then stop again, right? So birth rate is going to be 0 at the beginning. Can you frame that? 2 seconds is going to be 10. Whoopsie daisy, 10. And all the way over at 6 is going to be 0 again. We want to do the same with the velocity. So at the beginning, we're going to keyframe velocity 1. At about 2, we're going to have like, 3. And then move over here to 6 and 0, something like this. So we get this nice burst of sand. You can also add motion blur to the particles, so you can see they actually move or they blur based on the direction they're going. Once you're satisfied with the sand particles, we also want, those nice small glints that we see on sand when they hit the light. So let's click on sand particles and Control-Shift-C to pre-compose. Let's just eliminate this. Bam-a-lama ding-dong. Now we have only the particles in here, and it's actually probably hard to see for you guys. So I'm just going to increase the exposure here, so you can see it's just this nice big particle system. And we're going to duplicate these sand particles and call them glints at the end here. And we're going to set a tint effects, or you know what, even better, let's just call it fill. Double click on fill. Not fill as in Philip, but fill as in fill with color. Now we're going to add a glow effect as well, because we want them to really give that banana cream sandwich type of glow. So let's set the fill to, almost white, like really golden white, something like this. So right now they're quite in our face. They're all over the place, right? We don't actually want that. But this is just the beginning. So we can even duplicate this glow, and let's set it to like 50. Duplicate again, set it to like 100, something like this, so it gets this nice big soft glow. New solid, and we're going to call this glint noise. There we go. We're going to add a fractal noise. You guessed it. Where are you? Bam. Alright, so this is going to be very high contrast, something like this. We're going to decrease the scale quite a smidge, and even the brightness quite a smidge. So it's really only like small dots all over the place. And we're going to out-click on evolution and write time times, I don't know, 150. It's probably too much. Let's say 60. So this way it animates over time. As you can see, it's just slowly animating. And look at this coolness. So on particles glint, we're gonna add a set mate. We're gonna put this at the very, very top. And we're gonna set it to glint noise. We're gonna set it to effects and masks so that it includes the effects of the noise. Let's just hide the noise. And let's set it to luminance channel. So see now, already you can see some white dots here on the screen. Let me just hide the GUI so you can see it better. So you can see the glints are appearing only where the noise is. So if we actually animate this or let it run, you can see how it's glinting all over the place. I mean, isn't that just plain awesome? And it's still a little bit too much in the same places. So I'm gonna double click E here, just say like 120. So that's pretty cool. If you want, you can of course also play around with the actual logo a bit. You can, like in mine, I just added some drop shadow, something like this, completely black. Right now it's probably really hard to see. Double click and drop shadow again. Add some nice blueness, something like Dios. You can play around with this to your heart's content, so you get this nice little blue outline. And to give it some extra movement and some extra life, we can even add some displacement to the text. So let's go over into the text here. And let's say displacement map. Where are you? Bam. So double click on this bad boy. So we're going to set this to follow the sand noise. We're going to set it to just luminance all the way down. There we go. And we're going to set it to effects and mask just in case if we have any effects. So we can add some nice little, like say 40, something like this, just to get some nice displacement of the sand effects on the text. So you can see it's actually almost wiping on still. I mean, look at that. And we can decrease it over time, just like everything else. So keyframe the displacements and all the way into the end, and let's set it to 0 and 0. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and please, if you have any feedback or ideas, don't hesitate to send them to me or write them to me in the comments. It's always nice to get other people's perspective and other people's ideas. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys can create with this idea and this effect, especially with the vector noise and the fractal noises, because you can make a lot of cool organic effects with it. So I'm looking forward to see what you guys can create. So you know what? I hope you guys have a wonderful day with some cheese.